All right, so good morning. So what we're going to be making is an ASP.NET Core application for a friend of mine. It's an e-commerce app. It's going to be about a 6-hour project. We're going to be using ASP.NET Core. We might have a couple of web API calls, but let's just get going on this. So we're going to create a new project, and I'm going to go create a project, and we're going to say that this is a Core Web Application. And I'm going to call this just BM for now. And I'm going to put this in my companies, Pixel, Horror Studios. Yeah, let's put it in there. And then projects, and we'll call it BM. You have a design? Yeah, I have a design. I have a template that I'm using. We're going to import the template. We're going to hook everything up. Let's select this, and we're going to go create. How are you doing today? Return TM. We're going to select ASP.NET 2.2, and I want to make a model view controller project. It's also going to include API on it. On our authentication, we want to add user accounts just stored in app. I could also use Identity Server 4, but I'm not going to. And let's spin it up. Oh, we just started. Return TM. This is just the beginning. We just started. So let's take a look at what we got with this. Because we're using ASP.NET with the identity system, we're inheriting from an identity context instead of just a database context. So what this means is that I end up with my generic roles, users, role claims, and then users claims, users logins, users tokens. The next thing is that it also includes a home controller with some web API calls, but they are just calling them controller call, because this is a server-side rendered language. So we have controllers and we have API controllers. API controllers are for web APIs. It's got an index, a privacy page, an error page. We need to make some modifications on this. And then also it's got a couple of error things, and then a identity view start here for my layout. And then when we look at the actual code itself, I'm going to open these views in File Explorer, and I'm going to open this folder and code because it's easier for this. All right, I understand. Because based on the Chromium V8 engine, it will display web pages more consistently, as most people develop for that engine, so people who don't know massive about computers will get a better experience. Okay, I like that. Let's take a look at what I've got here in my index. Let's install the plugin. And then it's almost done. So there we go. See, it's getting my Razor syntax here, which is what I want. Okay, there's no restart required. It should just work. So let's reopen the page. Not quite. Let me restart it. Open this back up in code. And there we go. Now we've got our language support. So in here, this is where we're going to be putting in the HTML, and also we can put in C# elements. So we're going to be using a template. The first thing I need to do is change on my app settings.json. I need to change this to my local server, which is just called PHS SQL. And then my database here will be I'm going to call this thing PHS_BM. Is it an underscore? Let me take a look at what my other things are. If if I look at my database, and I open up my PHS SQL here, my consistency is I'm using a dot. So let's close that, and we'll put this as a dot. And then it's a trusted connection with multiple active results. We can copy this, and we're actually going to put this here in the protected override. What's it called? On model creating. And I believe in here I can do a builder dot connection string. What am I? There's a place where I can dump the connection string in directly. Let me reference another project, just a moment. We can look at that together. It's this one. And in here, I'm going to look for the context, which is in domain context. And we'll look at the application database context, and I'm doing it in the on configuring. So let's go ahead and copy that bit here, like that, and then do that. And we want this to be this one here. Okay, so that way we can now actually remove our connection string from the app settings. And what I can do for now is I can create a new class, which we're just going to call globals. And I'm going to say that this is a public constant, static constant called connection string. And we're going to say that this one is connection string constant. Why isn't it happy with me there? Public static read only. It's a string called connection string underscore development. And we'll put that in here. Okay, the next thing that we want to do is reference this in here. And we want to put that in globals. Sorry, been programming in too many different languages at this point. Let's go back to globals here, and we'll just change this to be a static class. And I want this to be a const. Sorry, wrong language. And this is going to tell me a constant can't be marked static. So that works fine. And we'll remove this. And we want to have the gets and the gets on this. I guess that doesn't matter either. We'll just set it right there. Looks good. And back in here, we're fine there. So now we've got a connection string set up. And we have a home controller, and our models, we just have the error controller. So the first thing I want to do is now add in here a add migration. And I want to say it's called init. And I'm going to run that. And this is going to use Entity Framework. And it's going to create my identity in-app identity system. Says my connection string cannot be null. All right. That's because in my service startup, I'm referring to this default connection anymore. And in this, I just want to put globals dot that. Let's try it again. Okay, we'll do an update database. And after just a moment, it should deploy my database. And it does. So when we look at the database again, here, we should see the tables as are just classic ASP.NET identity. So that's perfect. Okay, so the next thing that I want to do is let's take a look at the template that we're going to be using. So let's move this over here for a minute, and I'll open this up, and I want to take a look at my index. So this is where we're going to start. So I'm going to pull the HTML out of this for now, and then we're going to make some modifications on this. So I'll do a select. Okay, we'll do this a different way. We're going to leave this one here. We're going to minimize it just a bit. And then I'm going to open this up here in code. Hey there, John. How are you? It's good to see you again, man. Yeah, it's going to be gone real soon, though. I'm pretty irritated with it. It's annoying. All right, so what we want to do in here is take a look at the libraries that I need to be importing. So since we're using Core, the imports are, there's no separate import class like in ASP.NET 5. So we'll go ahead and we're going to bring in the doc type. I don't need that. The head, I don't need that. That should all be here inside of my, not that, layout. Here's my environment setup for what it's pulling in. This thing says that it wants to use Bootstrap, and we want to say that we have this title here, which I'm just going to call BM. And then in this, we're going to have only one version of Bootstrap. So I'm going to scrap these development environment because I don't think I'm going to need to have them separated. And then the next thing I'm going to do is bring in my plugins, which we're going to have Font Awesome, Flex Slider, Carousel, some CSS. We'll wait on that for a moment. Yeah, I don't use Bootstrap myself. This is a quick project. Well, I mean, I used to use Bootstrap a lot. I'm not using it so much anymore. I like Flexbox. Okay, that looks fine. Custom scroll, CSS, CSS YAM. I think both of these are third-party libraries I'll need to bring in, as well as the Revolution and our custom CSS. So we'll bring all these in. And this means that I can scrap my CSS here. So let's go back to the project. And I want to open up the whole thing and explore. And I'm going to reopen that folder in code. And now in my web root, I should see my site CSS, which I'm going to now modify this web root. And we're going to bring in the libraries that I need here, which would be, we can scrap this one. What's my CSS in here? Site CSS, there's nothing in that. What libraries do I have? So actually, this is what it wants me to do, is to dump all of these libraries here. I'll have to change their references if I want to do that. That's fine by me. So let's revert that by going to the recycle bin, and I'll just bring these two back. Okay, so in this library, we're going to scrap the Bootstrap, jQuery, and jQuery validation. I might leave jQuery here and remove it later. I don't think I'm using it at this point in this model. So let's scrap Bootstrap here and bring in the version that I'm using in the template. And then I remember that Bower components are typically like Flex, Font Awesome. That's where our jQuery's in. So now we have 2 copies of jQuery, but only one of jQuery validation. So I'll get rid of this one. And I'll bring in my Bower components and bring jQuery validation into that. If I look at my CSS here, we're going to drag that into here. And this is my site default. And we can scrap that and add in these two. What's the map here for? I don't know. We'll leave it alone. It's probably being used somewhere. Okay, that's fine by me. The next one is the custom scroll bar. We want to bring that in. That's actually jQuery. So over here, underneath my library, underneath Bower components, we had a, we'll add it in here, like that. And then this one, that looks fine. Then in our JS, it's got a couple of pieces, which we can put in here. We can scrap the site.js. Okay, it says it's got 2 MailChimp things. So we'll take a look at that for our template, and maybe we can scrap them later. We also have a carousel and these icons and this revolution thing, and we need to bring those in here to my library. And then I also have the SCSS for the project, so let's definitely bring that in here to there. We have 1 and 2, ooh, Twitter OAuth. Interesting. We don't need that, but we will still bring this in temporarily. And that looks pretty good. We want to put these into the lib. Okay. The next thing that I want to do on this is we need to start bringing in our individual pages and updating our references. So if I look at my project here, underneath my view shared layout, here I can see everything. And what I want to do is change my paths here. So Bootstrap is actually in. All right, so this is not as good as VS. So let's go back over here. And we're going to open this view up here, and I'm going to change these paths to be lib, bootstrap, CSS, bootstrap CSS. Do you have a min version of it? Bootstrap min CSS. Okay, the next one here is your Bower components, which are in lib Bower components. That's interesting, I'm not seeing them. So if I look at the www root and I refresh it, I don't see Bower components anymore. But they are definitely here in the project. Okay, then we'll rename it here components. Don't ask me what that was about. And in this, we're going to say that one's good. We're going to add this one here into the lib. Our owl carousel is also here and here. Our PE icons are there. Our custom minimum scroll bar is for jQuery. That's in there. My yam.css. It's got very little in it. Another menu for Bootstrap. In this thing, we're going to change this to be lib. It's a CSS file, yam. We also have revolution CSS, but that's in the lib. And then this is our custom CSS file. Okay, the next thing is I've got a header in here. And if I look at my template, well, let's see how badly we've messed things up. I bet you what we need to do now is leave our header, and we're going to get rid of our navbar here. And then I'm also going to check cookie consent partial. This is a cookie policy. I don't know if I need this. We'll take a look for that in a moment. And then we've got our class. I don't need to give it a current class at the moment. Oh, it's main and role. PB3. PB3 is a class, so we can scrap that. And then our render body. We also have the footer. So we're going to leave this for now, that for the privacy policy. This navbar was for index privacy. Let's put this back in. And then down here in our development environment, we see this is where I have my other scripts that I'm bringing in here. So we can scrap these ones. And also this. And what we want to do is look back at my template. When I look at the bottom of this, we've got the source code here. So this is all for the footer. I know we want to bring this in, and then this little bit as well. So back in here, we'll leave that for now just so I have a reference. And we're adding in our scripts that we need to, and we want to say that this is a lib Bower components, like that. Same thing here. JS is not in a lib. And this is easy and migrate. Okay, we have Bootstrap, which is just there. Yeah, we've got the JS here for jQuery sticky JS, which is true. It's just right there. Same thing for that one and that one. Custom scroll bar is in, oh wait, JS doesn't have that and JS doesn't have that one. Custom scroll bar, that needs to be in the lib. Same with Bower components and app, the carousel. This one is just a tilly and a slash. And then the same thing there. Then we have text JavaScript, which we want to bring in here from the lib. Revolution.js. And then the same thing here. And then 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's all fine. We can scrap these little bits here. And then it says that we're going to render our section here called scripts, which is an extra section that we can add if we need to. Let's take a look at what we currently have. We're going to run the project. Okay, this is our ASP.NET template site. You can see it's already starting to look a little different based on the changes that we've made. We do have our login. This is our default login. We can add in third-party login if we need to. We also get a register. So we have a nice little start here. So let's go back to the template. You can close this one. And the template I'm going to bring over here. Okay. And then what we want to do is we're going to start parsing this thing out into different bits. So the first bit is our header. And I think we've covered all of that. Character set, metadata, our viewport. We want to change that. That one's fine. Okay. Fine by me. We'll just add this little bit in here as well. Okay, now we have our search, which is going to be a toggle form. So when I look at this little one, let me look at my site. The first thing that I'm looking at is, oh, I see why that didn't work. The first thing that I'm looking at is the search bar. Which, what, does it drop down or something? Oh, I don't see it. It's this. It's this search bar. You actually have to activate it. So we don't need the search bar. No worries about that. We'll have that actually here. So let me add this one in as a partial, maybe. So we'll add in here a new view. I'm going to call this thing a search toggle form. I probably didn't do that right. Give it just a second. Yeah, let's do that again. This is a partial, so it's called a view called a partial view called search toggle form. And we'll add it. Okay. And then it will just add this bit. Now in my index, oh, we're still in the header. So in my layout, it's doing this above the header, which is interesting. I'm okay with that. We're gonna do what is going on with my phone? Hey there, NetPXL. How are you doing? Thank you for that host with 6 viewers. If you guys have any questions when I'm working on, please don't hesitate to put them into the chat. We've got an active and supportive community on our Discord, discord.pixelhorrorstudios.com. Also, make sure you check us out at youtube.pixelhorrorstudios.com. Thanks again for the support. Let's do a at html.renderPartial. And I need to give it the view name, which is a search toggle form. And we want that to be synchronous, I'm imagining. Wants me to run this asynchronously. So we'll do that. Okay, we're going to add this in as a block. And that looks better. Okay. And so now in our header, we're going to add the top bar here with our pictures and the static nav bar and our features. And this is where the header ends. So let's add this in. Now in this, I don't want this in the layout. I'm going to add a new shared view called header. We'll add that. Hey there, NetPXL. How are you doing? Games make. How are you guys doing? Welcome to the chat. Okay, we're going to add this one bit in here, and we're going to call this a render my partial here called header inside of the header bit. Looks right. Thing. Await HTML dot render partial asynchronous of the header. Okay, let's take a look at what we've got. All right, looking pretty good. We've got the whole header here, and we should have the action, which is right. Got something for a message here if I want it. And then everything is rendering correctly. So the next thing that we want to do is start adding in individual sections. So we have a footer. Let's grab that. And we're going to, in this project, stop it. And one thing I need to add in here under my app here is called images. Like that. And these are the images that we need to change. Okay. Now I'm going to add another partial in here. And I'm going to call this footer. And in this I want to add my containers. I don't see where it's header, where the footer stopped. You see it starting. Oh, it's here. Okay. We'll add this in. And then we have this footer bottom. Okay, which is a gonna go here in the layout underneath footer bottom. And here we're gonna say a new little bit of C# in here, and we're gonna say that this is a await HTML dot render partial asynchronous of the footer. Okay, we can get rid of our classes on footer, right? Because there's no classes on it. It's just classes footer. And then we can get rid of that. And then also we can have one more here called await HTML.render partial asynchronous called footer bottom. And we're going to add that in here as a new view, call it footer bottom. And in this one, we're going to add this. Okay. We can scrap this now. We're going to bring this footer into the footer itself here. Like that. Okay. Let's take a look at what we have now. Did it start somewhere and I didn't see it? Here we go. So we've got quite a little bit more information here that we'll be able to work with, and we have our individual sections that we'll be able to turn on and off here. So let's start to develop our actual bits. We want to look at the index here, which just has welcome at the moment. So we're going to move up here to the top. And the first one that I want to add in here is the slider. And it looks like that this is loading them manually. And then we're going to add this right here. And when I look at what they're doing here, they're not iterating with a loop. They're just manually coding in each one of them for the images. That's fine. Let's see what that looks like. Give it a refresh. Dev or live trying? Who's that? I'm live or dev trying. How are you doing there, Flykin? All right. So this is our first one. And this is a slider with different images. And then same bit below. So in this one, we're going to make a new partial in here. And it's not a shared partial, so we could just add it in here. And I could say this is called a underscore I'm going to call it slider. We'll add that in. Okay, and in this, I'm going to move my slider content into here. And just like you saw us do before, we're going to do a bit of C# in here. And I want to do await my render partial HTML.render partial asynchronous of slider. I don't know if anybody sees where I'm going with this, how I'm setting this up. Because ultimately I'm going to put this into a database so that I'll be able to turn on and off each of the sections if I need to. Okay, the next bit is new arrivals. Which is here. So we're going to add in a new view here called new arrivals. And we'll add that as a view, as a partial. And we'll add this in. This one, when we use this, we're going to use view, most likely, to handle the JSON response from the back end. That looks fine. So we're going to cut that one out. And then that looks good. And then in the index here, we're going to have one for new arrivals. Okay, the next one is popular products, which is here. We'll make a new view, call it popular products. Add this in here like that. The next one here is newsletter. And we're going to bring this one into here. So this was popular products and newsletter. The next one is a new view called a bestseller. Hey, Ryan Roberts, Cubs lover. Absolutely. How are you doing? Welcome to the channel. Let me look at my bestseller. Which is here. And under index, we're going to add one for bestseller. Let's take a look at what we have right now. That's a good thing. It's good to get started that way. What languages did you learn? Okay, here we've got our header, our different sections. Doesn't look like these rendered out correctly though. When I look at the console, it failed to load the resources. So if I was to comment these out for a second, check it again. Same issue. It's not finding some of the resources. So if I look back at my layout, it says it can't find some of these CSS references. Like that one, that one, that one, that one, or that one. Thank you for that follow. Appreciate it. because I know it's going to be hard, but I got the basic building clock. So for a while, class functions data, but in Python, my next course is C++. I'm struggling implementing classes, but I got the concept. Is like when you say what the package is, like a human, you have to say its height, weight, skin color, its methods. It can walk, talk, run, jump, eat. Package is a bit of code that's been compiled, and then somebody else can use it. So like these things in here, these are packages, this font awesome package, or a plugin, if you will. But what you're talking about is an object. An object is like, oh, I'm going to make a human object that has different characteristics and properties and functions that are associated with it that could be inheriting from other classes. Okay, so let's check this again and run it. This time, the only one that it says it's failing is jQuery minimum. When it's issuing a GET to the tweet replies. So if I look here in the www root tweety.min.js here, it's not that. Twit API here has tweet.php. Crap. Somewhere you're referencing this in probably the footer. Which one? Really, that's how they talked about classes. I want to work hard so my life is easier later. I take data structure Spring, so the goal is to learn it. So the deal is that a class is a template, right? So a class defines what an object will be, and then you have to instantiate and create those objects. So it's not that one. It's probably this one here. It's not that one. Could it be here in our header? It's not in the header. Could it be? I wonder where that's coming from. Let me comment that out. And then this bit, we'll comment this out, and then this out. Come on, just to there. Still failing. So it's when one of these things is loading, it's trying to, this bit of PHP in here needs to get modified. Because the config, these aren't real. The PHP is getting called from where? Custom.js, which is here. So we'll just remove that. There we go. Okay. Hate PHP. Back in here, get rid of that, get rid of that. Okay, got a nice little bit to our start, and then also on my index. We're going to bring these back. Okay. The next bit is a features. So in here, I'm going to add a new view called features. And that's just this little bit. We're almost done with this. The next one is partners. And that's the last one. Okay, over here in the index, we'll also add in partners. Check out the site. All right, it looks like we've got all of the site imported and none of the data is coming from the server yet. So now we get to start working with this. We have a login section here, and I believe because we did this in using the identity system, we already have a login here, which is not displaying for some reason. Login partial. ASP.NET page account. So they're hiding it. I need to generate it. So I want to do a ASP.NET Core generate identity views. We add new scaffolded item for identity. Never seen that before. So we're going to go to it says to go here, add new scaffolded item called identity. And then we want to select everything. And select my data context class's application database context and do an add. There we go. Here are now all of my views. I still don't see the controllers for it. We did all that. I still don't see where it added my identity hosting startup. It's interesting. scaffold identity controllers. This is just a documentation on it. That's not something we need. Check layout if necessary. Let me check that again. We'll do a add new scaffolded item for the identity. It's not letting me choose any of the controllers. So I guess it's all written into these views. These are different, what these are. So if I look at these pages here for my index, it's using my index model. Never created my model, so I'd have to override it or extend it. I see what they've done. Okay. All right. That looks fine. So now what we want to do is look at my index header, and I have a place that says login, right? This is the nav bar. I know that there's a place in here that said login. This one. We don't want to link it there. We want to do a at url.action link, or is it a html.action link? And we want to say that this is to the login, and we want to say that this goes to my action name is login and my controller name is account. Like that. Let's take a look. Looks good. All done in Bootstrap, which is nice. We need to make sure that this stuff is coming off of the server. And we'll do a login. Didn't navigate me where it was supposed to. Interesting. If I look at my inspect on that, this is a different login place. Here's this one. This is the one we want. And this is at html.actionLink. login, login, and account. Now we click login. It says it didn't navigate me there correctly or something. Why did it do that? What? It's not even showing me the right link. Yeah, see, this is the login model. Why isn't it navigating me? That's very bizarre. So let's look up here, ASP.NET, HTML, helper, navigate, URL. It's all saying the same crap. That's very fascinating. So if I look at my login partial that I still have here, this has a account and a display name. I want to it's doing them like this. That's very different. So let me go back to this one. I'm going to bring this bit into the header, and I'll put these right here. Like that. And I'll bring that same thing into up here. Now we'll try it again. I was like, that's strange, right? Oops, wrong site. There we go. Identity account images says that didn't work. because this is still all a template. So now we actually get to do some real work on this thing, which is fine. So if I look at my layout, this search toggle form needs to be under a different layout. So just a second, thinking. Because when I look at this, basically I want to have the model know which page I'm on, whether or not it wants to show this search toggle form and the header. And then the same thing here with the footer. If I was to just move the footer here into index.html, that should resolve that problem, right? If I look at my layout, you're injecting this and view imports. That's fine. You are using a different layout here. Can you do this one? If I just get rid of that, that should solve the problem. Now it doesn't even know anything about Bootstrap or any of those libraries, which is fine by me. So what that means is I want to go to another site, when we'll open up a new VS Code, and I'm just going to make a new folder here on the desktop called nothing. Crap. Gotta do it again. Went too fast. No, we're good. And I look at my layout. I'm going to bring this one into here. And over in this one, we want to change this back to be manage how do I get to that one? It's identity, account, manage, layout. Manage. What if we just did manage like that? And we also want to put it in account manage. Areas identity map, this one. Okay, and then also you want to put that here. There we go. So now, when we click on login, it takes me here. That works for me. So now we get to add some programmatic features in here. So the first thing that I want to have is a model called we're going to call it a partial info, partial view VM. And in this, I want to say a new prompt integer called a order. Let me think for a second. And why don't we go ahead and make a new folder in here called entities. And in this, I'll make a new one called a base entity. And in this, it needs to be a GUID, which is an ID and a key. And it needs to be database generated, called a database generated option called identity. And then we also want to have a date time called a timestamp, which is datetime.utc now. This needs to be abstract. Now the first one is a partial view entity. No, we'll just call this partial view. And in this, we want to have a int called order. And we also want to have a string called viewName, which we'll just rename to be name. And this needs to be a base entity. We also want to have a bool on here, which is active, which is true. Do we need any other information on here? Not at this time. So this partial view needs to have these things. And we also want to have in here a new model called a base view model, which is a abstract class, which just has a GUID called an ID and a date time called timestamp. Okay. That looks right. And also we can get rid of this. Okay. We want to add AutoMapper to the project. So let's do that. I'll look in my NuGet packages here for AutoMapper. And I'm going to install this. Nobody cares about this. Okay. And so now in my startup, I should be able to have a public protected IMapper called create AutoMapper. And we're going to say return new mapper configuration, I think it is, of my thing that looks like that dot create mapper is what I think it is. Let's see how close I got. No, what is this? Just a second. Let me open up another project. Oh, that's what it is. It's just a new mapper configuration. And in here we want to do a c.create map, and we want to create the map from my partial view model to my partial view, and we want to do a reverse map on that. And now in here, I can do a services.add transient, and it's a create mapper. And this is a capital M. It's not a transient, it's a singleton. Like that. Okay? So now in my context, I want to add in here a new database set called partial view, which is partial views. I don't understand what it's so upset about here. Oh, because I'm in the constructor. So sorry, I want to do it down here. Like that. Okay? How do you like the new VS 2019? Do you have something that you very much like in the new version? I like it. It's not too bad. Hey, Remote, welcome back. It's good to see you guys. Now in here we need to seed the database. So to do that, we're going to look at the context, and it's in my protected override called onModelCreating. And you want to do builder.entity of my partial view .has data. And here we want to do my new partial view like that. And we're just going to keep adding these things in here. Okay, so to do this, we're going to look at the layout. And the first one here is called ID is equal to GUID.parse of, and we'll give it an ID. The name here is called search toggle form, and the like that, and then the order is going to be 1, and the active is true, and the date timestamp is equal to new date time of. I can do 2019, 05, 18, and then 10. And that's fine. Okay, and for the parse, we can just get a new GUID here like this and copy it in. Okay. So the next one here is a ID is equal to something, and it's a GUID.parse. We can just copy and paste this a bunch of times now. Like this. The next one is called header. The order is 2. And this is the new GUID. Okay, we're going to do this a few more times. So we'll copy this one and do one there, and then there, and then there, and then there. Okay, this is the third one. Its name is going to be active. And it's not active. It is active, but it's called, it's our render body here. So when I look at the index, it's called Now the interesting thing is that this one and this one aren't even going to make it into the app because I'm not going to be able to make them because it's not going to iterate through those, right? So we're going to add in here a new thing called bool called is header and bool is pre-header. And this is going to be is header is true and is pre-header equals true. And then these two will be false. Okay, the third one here is called slider. This is a true. Then we need these two here as a false and a false. Okay, this is the next one here. It's the fourth one. It's called new arrivals. We'll copy and paste that GUID in here. And it's a is header is false and a is header is false. Okay, the next one is this. And it's called popular products. And its order is going to be 5. And it's active, and that's good. The next one is newsletter, which is here. That's 6. The next one is here, which will be 7, and it's called bestseller. The next one is called features, which is 8. I'm almost done here. The next one here is 9, which is partners. The next one here is 10, which is footer. And the last one here is footer bottom. So this one needs to get changed out. This is 10. This one needs to get changed out. And then this one is 11. And this one needs to get changed out. Okay, now we can close that up. So now we're seeding our database correctly, which is nice. So let's go ahead and do a add migration. We're going to say added partial views. It says Are your broadcasts private? What do you mean private? I put them all up on youtube.pixelhorrorstudios.com. I don't know what you mean private. Okay, so that's done. Why didn't that build? It's telling me it's in my error model. We'll just dump this. Dump this one. Dump the cookie consent policy. Back on the layout. And can dump the partial. I guess you could do this an easier way, like this. That's interesting, eh? Let's just double check that that didn't break anything. We'll get rid of that one. Yeah, it's looks fine. Looks fine. So the next thing is that we want to pass in the model. So in my home controller, for index, I want to do a using var context equals new application db context. And instead of doing that, we can just inject here the CTOR called the application db context called context, and then we can have a protected read-only application db context called context, and we need to assign it. And so now what I want to do is do a var, and we want to do my partial views equals await my context dot, and it's partial views dot where they are active, and you want to do a order by the rank, which you're calling order dot to list asynchronous. So now this is an asynchronous task of the action result. And now I want to return my partial views. So in my layout, I want to pass in here a, and how did I see it done over here? Like that. And we're going to define one called partial view. As an I enumerable of partial view. And in order to do this in view imports, I need to have one more called entities. And now that should work. And now what I want to do is put a bit of code in here which says for each var item in model dot. So for each item in model, this is going to be partial view dot where my is a pre-header. I just want to render this one as a partial view dot name. Okay. Can I just do that? I can. Okay, so the next one is here. We're going to render the same thing again for my header. And this is header. And now we're going to go into the body, called render body. Okay, and then I wonder if you could say model equals partial view. Okay, so in my index, now it's really easy because all we're going to have is this. And we can get rid of all of those. Let's run it and see what happens. This one I need to have my at model, and that needs to be a I enumerable of the partial view. And I want to do this where it is not the header and it's not the pre-header. Can I pass in a model? I guess I already am, I'm assuming. And this one is not the pre-header. And now we'll give it a run. Tells me I need to update my database. So here we go. And we'll run an update database. Now we can run it. And so now this is completely being loaded from the database. And what I mean by that is that if I came in here to the database and I was to edit my table for partial views, I can go ahead and say here I want to turn everything off except for the we'll leave the footer. Let's get rid of the footer. Features, partners, the search, we'll leave that. Newsletter, we'll remove that. Popular products is fine. And the header is fine, okay? And now when I reload the page, it's only showing the sections that I have enabled. So this will give us a lot of freedom to figure out which ones of these sections we want to populate. So let's go ahead and start with the first one, which is this search form, if I was to look at the search toggle form, this is just a search bar with a placeholder and a search with a close, and it doesn't have any functionality. It just searches, and it doesn't have a post back to the web API at this time. So we would need to add that in. But the first thing that I want to do is we'll go back into here, and I just want to look at the headers for a moment. Okay, so let's take a look at what's going on here with the header. The first one is, let's do something fun. Let's go ahead and do something where we retrieve some data. So let's do a popular products. Okay, so when I look at this one, this stuff is being loaded directly here. So we need to create a model here called a product. We can get rid of this. Move these out. Change in my view start, import this one. Like that, and then also in here, that one. Okay? So what I want to do is I need to have something return data with my popular products. So just one more second. We could do that either synchronously or asynchronously. So if we did it asynchronously, I'm going to need to issue an AJAX call when the page loads to retrieve that data. If I did it synchronously, we're going to grab it from the database beforehand. So let me look at this, and we'll do an ASP.NET Core AJAX post. Almost done. Okay, so what we're going to do is in my partial view here for popular products, we're going to have down here a section called scripts. And in this, I want to have a script which is going to load, and we want to do it with a little piece of AJAX in here. So we'll do this, and I want to add in here a function called get popular items asynchronously, and we'll go ahead and we're going to run this get popular items asynchronously when the page loads. Okay. So in this, we're going to add this stuff. So we want to send it as form encoded data. That's fine. We were looking for something here called form. Well, we're actually just issuing a get, so don't need to worry about this one. Don't need to worry about this one. Isn't there another way to do this where we use XHR? Where's the post? Yeah, here it is. It's an XHR request. And so let's go ahead and do it here. We're going to add in here this request. We'll say with credentials, we're going to make a get to my I think I can do an at URL dot raw or something like that. It's just returning a string, so I can just say here, we want to get the one which is get items. We're going to set this thing to be application JSON. We're going to send out the request here. And then we're going to stringify it. And then we're sending it. Okay. So now in my home controller, I want to have something here called a public asynchronous task of an I action result, which is going to be called a get items asynchronous. We'll just call it get items. And all I want to do here is return a task.from, we'll just say completed. Okay, let's go ahead and see if it works. We'll run it. Don't worry about that. Or that one. Okay, if I look, I don't think it ever executed the script. First thing is on my layout. It's called scripts capital. And then on my popular products, did it have a space on it? Because it's not executing. In my index, am I supposed to do a one of those? Render section can only be called from the layout page. That makes sense. Second. So we want to look at a ASP.NET partial view with scripts section. Okay, it wants me not to do it in the partial. So let me move this over here into the index. We can get rid of this privacy section. It's not rendering the code on the there. Now it will be. Let's give it another run. Invalid regular expression tags. Okay, here's the request. It says data is not defined, which is fine. We don't need to send a payload. There it is, and it's hit my web API. So let's go ahead and check this thing to be a authorized, because I just want to test something. Now it's going to say it's not authorized because it never grabbed the access token, but that's perfect. That's what I wanted it to do. So we're good there. So now what I want to do is I want to say if my model.nes where my name is equal to popular products, then we want to do this request. Okay. So now I need to create a new entity here called a product. And on this, I want it to be a new prop here called it's a string called the link. We'll just say href. We want to have a string here called the classes. We want to have a wait, do you need class? Hold on. I don't see that. So you need a name. You need a price. And this is a base entity. And then what I want to do is add this to my application database context called a products. And then down here we want to add these. So we'll do a builder dot entity of my product dot has data, which is a new product like that. And we also want to have a int for the order. What? Hey there, Fredbeard Game Bro 563. How are you doing? And in this one, we want to have a order is 0, and the name here is short skirt, I guess, and the price will be $29.99, and the we want to say the href is this one. Okay, we'll do another one and then another one here for the second one, like that. And the name is the same. And this one will be 2. And the product is that's the name there. How you doing, man? Like that, okay? So now we've added products in there. I have to make sure I have GUIDs. So we want to make sure I have the ID is equal to GUID.parse of this. And then also the timestamp is the new date time of 2019-05-18. Two, 3. The new GUID here is this one. And the new GUID here is this one. Okay. It looks like you're starting your order at 1, not 0. And now what we can do is in here we can do a at for each var item in my model, and in my popular products we want to pass in a now, the model is not going to contain this information, the JavaScript is. So what we want to do is we're going to take a short break. When I come back, we're going to be using Vue.js to display our items after we retrieve them as JSON. If you have any questions, make sure you drop them in the chat. Discord.pixelhorsestudios.com. Also, I put all these videos up at youtube.pixelhorsestudios.com. Thanks for staying with me. I'll see you in 12 minutes.